Hey everyone. Welcome to Penny's Mind Files Method, the podcast showing you where the off ramp to the healing highway is when you're stuck on the life sucks road that goes nowhere. In this episode, we're going to take a look at one of the ways avoidances show up in your healing journey. If you follow my social media page, you might have seen this meme. It says, before you can become who you were intended to be, you must understand who you were in all the previous stages. So why? Why do you need to understand that? Why is that important? And what are the previous stages? Way back when I started my healing journey, I heard a lot of self-help gurus say that I didn't really need to do anything. I just had to choose who I wanted to be and then magically Shazam, I'm that person. Carefree and happy. Well, that's great because I'm tired. I don't want to have to do anything. Tired of being miserable. I'm tired of being depressed, tired of fighting everybody about everything. I'm tired of being angry and sad. And I'm tired of feeling nothing, of being numb. So that's fantastic. If all I have to do is choose a better me, well, who wouldn't want to do that? So I tried that for a while. I affirmated. I put the sticky notes on my mirror and on the fridge and on the door. I pivoted when negative thoughts came into my mind and simply thought positive thoughts. I did that for months and my life didn't change at all. I wasn't happy. I was pretending, and that made me resent myself even more. So I did the do nothing approach and I got nothing in return. Well, that's not entirely true. I did get something back. I got frustrated. But then I remembered something from my group therapy days, and that was nothing changes if nothing changes. I mean, if changing your life was as easy as just choosing happy thoughts, like who wouldn't do that? If it was really that simple, there wouldn't be any angry people in the world, would there? We wouldn't have the division and tribalism that we do right now. There wouldn't be people fighting about every single thing. So, in the last episode, I said I was on a learning kick again, and I've honestly kind of been on this particular one for quite a while now because I've been trying to figure out how exactly we got so off track as a society. Back in the 80s, there was this huge personal empowerment movement, and it seemed to be working. And then something happened that veered everybody off course. So, therapists like John Gray and lay people like Louise Hay, they were making a lot of headway helping people find their way to personal power. Now, at the time, it didn't occur to me to ask why so many people were disempowered because, of course, I was just interested in becoming myself personally empowered. So that's where my focus was. And then, of course, in the 80s, the famous ACE study came out, and researchers learned the horrible truth that more people had grown up at high levels of family dysfunction than previously thought. The statistics were overwhelming. And researchers, they're people too, right? And people often overreact to scary truths. So initially, I think what happened is the academic focus turned to trauma. And because people follow trends that academia kind of sets for us, the people's focus then turned to their own trauma. And then that made them self centered rather than genuinely empowered. Now, there's something I haven't talked about yet on the podcast because I don't think we're quite ready for that yet. But the energetic field that we send our energy out into, I mean, everybody's sending into that field, right? So it collects and gains and propels itself forward. So when lots of people started turning their focus to their childhood trauma, I think there was kind of a shift in the global energy force and that unfortunately gained for a lot of years. So So much so that collectively we all took a step backward into victimology. And also in the self-help industry, and industry is the correct word because it was the birth of the entrepreneurial wounded healer, right? The people who were going to save the world and finally matter. Yeah, that's the shadow side of the self-help movement. But to be fair, it's not just the self-help movement. It's a big part of the entire mental health industry as well. Let's take a moment and look at this really
How good
short video.
intentions end up harming people. Intent to do good is usually born from an emotional wound. The discomfort from those unresolved wounds generates desperation. Desperation, when met with resistance, escalates into manipulation and coercion. Both are fear-based control mechanisms that are both caused by and create archetypal wounds. This is the cycle of generational trauma.
Let's take a moment. Now, there's this common belief that you end up exactly where you're supposed to be, and I totally believe that. But what does that mean in relation to your healing journey? So, what that means is if God, however you define that power that's greater than you, and I do hope you believe in a power greater than you, because healing cannot and will not happen without divine intervention. Anyway, God knows your heart and will lead you to the teacher that you're ready for, because the power of creation reads your energetic output and then takes you to experiences that equal that output. So if you're not ready to do the work, if all your heart is wanting is validation and comfort and nurturing, well, then that's the kind of teacher that you're going to find your way to. And that's okay because that's where you're at. You know that saying, right? We meet people where they're at. So if you're relating more to victims than healed people, then that's where you're at. Now, of course, you might claim to be ready to heal, or you think you're ready, or you think you want to be ready. And if there's a slight chance, then God will put somebody in your path who can help you do that. But if you still choose to relate more to the victims crying about how hard done by they are, well, then that teacher is going to go on their merry little way. That's why I always say that there's a second part to the statement of meet people where they're at. If you know the way down the healing path, you should offer to show them, but then the ball's in their court. Leaving them there sitting in the muck, well, that's another avoidance kind of behavior pattern, because sitting with that person and telling them that there's healing farther down the road makes you actually have to face your own past. Because if you truly are further along the healing highway than that person, then that person's going to remind you of all the things that you have either just gone through or went through a while back. It's kind of a test, right? It's a test to see, have you actually moved past it, as well as an opportunity for them. So have you truly resolved the mind files you claim to have resolved? And if so, if you can't sit with that person without taking a step backward in your own healing journey, well, then you haven't actually resolved as many files as you think you have. You've reviewed them, but you haven't resolved them. Avoiding the tough stuff is normal and it's part of the healing process, right? We avoid because we're tired of feeling the yuck, the shame and the guilt and the apathy. We're tired of grieving the life that we think we wanted instead of the one we had. So we avoid deliberately placing ourselves in those feelings. Because what happens is we get done with the yuck and then we just want to feel happiness and joy and live this abundant life. But at some point, you have to kind of face the mucky stuff. So you get to a point where you start to say, okay, this, whatever I'm doing, whatever I've been doing isn't working, and there has to be a better way. And when you get there, you finally reach the vibrational level of courage. Courage is where you start to face the hard truths and accept responsibility for your role in your life. Courage is where you step out of the blame game and step into the real game. And the real game, that's where you develop maturity. The truth is, people can't help you. People can guide you, they can suggest all the things that you can do to help yourself to heal, but ultimately, you have to help yourself. You have to do the work. Nobody can do it for you. So, in the last episode, we talked about forgiveness and the steps along the way. But the one thing I didn't make crystal clear is there's certain things that people do to others, unspeakable things, horrible, evil things, and there's no way that you are going to be able to forgive those people without God. Ain't happening. So you're going to have to form a relationship with God and be extremely willing to heal those kinds of wounds. God knows if you're sincere, and as soon as he knows you are, well, then the answers that you need to resolve those mind files will come to you. Now, speaking of God, that's another area where avoidance comes in, right? Denying the existence of God or blaming God for the horrible things that happen to you. That's another way to avoid resolving that mind file. It's a delay tactic. If you acknowledge God exists, then you have to admit that evil exists. And if evil exists, well, then you have to wonder, how has it touched you? And if it's impacted you, well, did you participate in it? See, denying God allows you to hold on to blame. Denying God feeds your ego, and that ain't going to get you healed. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into evil in a different episode. But for now, just know that it vibrates at and below about 175, which means that everything below courage opens the door to invite evil in. So don't let it get a hold of you. Healing happens in small steps, and don't fool yourself. Life is going to test you to see if you've actually learned anything from your past or if you just think you're further along the healing highway than you are. Courage is contagious, so surround yourself with courageous people, not fake courageous, authentically courageous people who don't feed their inner victim or cater to other people's victims, who genuinely work at resolving the files in the filing cabinets of their mind. Read their books, listen to their podcasts. Let your heart guide you to the people who are genuinely courageous and away from the people who are selling you something. Those folks are fake folks. So that's it for today. I hope you heard something that can help you help yourself. Please be a light for somebody else and hit that thumbs up so that they can find their way to the Mind Files method and maybe they can get a little further down that healing highway. See you next time.